In the heart of Central Florida lies a quiet city with a powerful story. A story built not just with wood and nails, but with resilience, vision, and freedom. This is Bartow, Florida, and this is where one man turned bondage into legacy. Born into slavery, Lawrence B. Brown could have remained defined by limitation. Instead, he redefined possibility. Without formal education, he taught himself the craft of construction, transforming raw materials into homes and hope. He didn't just build houses, he built a community. Today, we are taking a short tour of the famous L.B. Brown House in Bartow, Florida. This tour is bittersweet as we say goodbye to and celebrate the life of Mr. Clifton Paul Lewis, president of the Corporation of Neighborhood Improvement in Bartow, and one of the key figures responsible for restoring the L.B. Brown House and helping secure its recognition on the National Register of Historic Places in 2001.
This house brings so much joy, and Cliff brought the inspiration to me with falling in love with the house and the history that goes with the house. I truly love doing my tours, meeting the people from all over the world, and sharing the legacy of Mr. Brown through the eyes of Clifton, who inspired me to be a part of this legacy with letting people know all over the world what Mr. Brown did and how important he was for the city of Bartow and the legacy that he leaves behind for the state and the United States. It's being an enslaved youth, the debilitating circumstances from slavery, and what he was able to accomplish as a successful and highly respected businessman in this Bartow community. Thank you.
Standing proudly in Bartow, this home is more than architecture. It is testimony. Built in 1892, the L.B. Brown House is one of the few remaining structures of its kind, crafted by a man who once had nothing, yet created everything. This living room once held conversations of family, business, and dreams, anchored by one of 4 fireplaces that warmed both body and spirit. In this kitchen, nourishment was more than food. It was stability, dignity, and independence. Here rested a man who built by day and envisioned by night, a space of care, protection, and possibility for the next generation, where young minds grew under the example of a father who turned skill into legacy. 4 fireplaces, 1 chimney, a design both practical and symbolic, many sources of warmth united by one foundation.
My name is Chuck Warren. I'm a member of the board and the acting president at this time of the Neighborhood Improvement Corporation, which owns the L.B. Brown House. I met Clifton over 20 years ago when he was just starting the NIC, and later on he was, when the NIC finished their work in West Bartow, they wanted to move and do some work in East Bartow, and Clifton saw this house. It was abandoned, it was in very bad shape, but he wanted to restore it, and so he began raising money and getting plans together to restore the house and use this as his office. And one of the builder, Lawrence Brown, who was born into slavery, who built this house, his son, his only remaining child, lived in New York and heard about him wanting to restore this home. So he came down and met Clifton and told him his father had built this house. And that's when Clifton realized the historical importance of this house. And so in the intervening years, since then, the house has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's one of the original displays in the Smithsonian Institute's Museum of African American History and Culture. That's an original display and a permanent display there. So Clifton has done a lot of work promoting the house. We've had visitors come from all over the country, in fact, from a number of different countries in the world. And several years ago, I presented an idea to Clifton about writing a book about this house so that when people came to visit, they could take back a memoir also which had all the history of the house in it, so they would have that to share with their friends. And so I wrote the book. I would send Clifton pages of the manuscript, and he would look at it and send me back all these anecdotes and stories that he knew about the book. So he added a lot of personal stories that made the book come to life, so to speak. And so the book is now available, of course, on Amazon, but most any bookseller can order the book. And it's also available here for people who tour the Brown House. They can purchase a copy as well.
The legacies of L.B. Brown, and now our dearly departed fearless leader, Mr. Clifton P. Lewis, extended beyond walls. They live in the people, the pride, and the preservation of history. As executive director, he didn't just preserve history. He protected it, nurtured it, and made sure it would live on from the 1900s until his soul departed the earth on November 16th, 2025.
Comes to pass. So there's one person that knows, and he ain't coming. So until then, we just live. And when he's through, then life really begins. That's why we're here today. Think of the celebration in his family when he was born. Think of the celebration in heaven when he came home. And we can't imagine, but we can sure celebrate. So the question for us today is, do you believe in it? Jesus had a good friend. Her name was Martha. And she said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. He was sick. The Lord was a little while coming. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus said, he'll live again. And she said, I know. He'll live again at the resurrection. Jesus said, I am the resurrection.
But and Miss Gloria had mentioned things about him being a very stickler for detail. I remember showing him that I had received in school all A's and 1 B. And my father said, well, why did you get that B? So I was like, what could you have done better to get the B? And I was so dejected. I'm thinking, what about all the 6 A's that I got? I didn't appreciate it at the time, but as I got older, I understood that he wanted to make sure that I tried hard. It didn't matter that it was geometry. That wasn't my strong suit. But he wanted to make sure you did your best. You worked hard. I mean, if you fell short, that was okay as long as you did your best. I remember going on car rides with my sister and him to Louisiana. It was about a 20-hour drive from Washington, D.C. to New Iberia. And he actually, that was the one time we actually saw him relax because he was going to go home to see his family in New Iberia. He would sing songs, and many of you did not see that side of him. He would tell jokes. Of course, there would be a lengthy history lesson along the way with every small town we went to. And, Angie and I would be sitting in the back seat. We were like, oh, here we go again. And we didn't appreciate it at the time, but I find myself doing the same thing with my kids. My kids would ask me a question, and I would give them this long, drawn-out explanation, and I would see their eyes roll, and I said, well, you have to place it in the proper context. And again, growing up, you didn't appreciate that, but now as I'm older and as a parent, I understood what my father was doing, and I really appreciate that now.
Just to take him at his word, and just to rest upon his promise, just to know, thus saith the Lord, Jesus, how I trust you, how I prove you, o'er and o'er and o'er. Jesus, my precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust you more.
The curator of the L.B. Brown Museum exemplified unwavering faith, compassion, and service, dedicating his time and many talents to the creation and development of the L.B. Brown House, community outreach, and the preservation of the history of the museum and the community. Whereas a good man builds his reputation on the way he treats others when there is nothing to gain, Clifton's life was a reflection of love and kindness, touching the hearts of all who knew him, inspiring others through his commitment.
I am the grandson of Clifton, who was I was brought into this family during the middle of their lives. I am very grateful for my stepmom for meeting my dad so I can be the best grandfather I ever had. I didn't have a grandfather growing up, and he definitely, he did that for me. For 1 week with him, like everybody saying, he taught me about history, taught me how to speak proper.
I also want to acknowledge my friends for a lifetime. If any of the members of the Bartow High School IB class of 2005 are here, can y'all just stand wherever you are? Thank you all so much. I love y'all. I also want to say to everyone who's on program, every person in the pulpit, and everyone who spoke, you meant something so deeply and profound to Dad. All of you were hand-selected because of the love that he had for you. So from me to you, I want you to know that you meant the world to Dad. Also,
November 16, 2025, God took his cross and gave him a crown. All the God's funeral homes stop by to tell you that one day we're all going to get a crown if we carry our cross. The songwriter said, I shall wear a crown. When it's all over, I'm going to put on my long white robe and tell the story how I made it over. Is there anybody that know that you're going to make it over when you see Jesus? On behalf of the God's Funeral Home staff, we want to thank you, the Lewis family, for entrusting your loved one with us. And we want you to know that one day God is going to welcome you just like he welcomed Deacon Lewis. Amen.
He made sure this house would never be forgotten, just like the man who built it.
Have to give it water to get water. My name is Clifton Lewis.
My name is Chuck Warren.
I'm the founding president of the Neighborhood Improvement Corporation of Bartow, Inc.,
I'm one of the board members of the L.B. Brown House.
the historic L.B. Brown House.
Here's an important story. When Clifton first realized that this house had some real significant historical value.
We're in Bartow, Florida, at the home of the L.B. Brown House. Lawrence Brown was born in 1856 near Gainesville, Florida.
He was born into slavery, freed at the age of 9 at the end of the Civil War.
He remained in the Gainesville area with his parents and worked on a farm until sometime in the mid-1870s, when he moved just east of Orlando, a little community known as DeLand, Florida. While he was there, he built at least 9 rental dwellings in the DeLand area. It was around 1885. Brown moved to Polk County, as a lot of other folks had done.
When he came to Bartow, it was a time when phosphate had been discovered and the trains had just come in to this area. So a lot of people were flocking to Bartow. It was a growing city.
This was the back door, for example, to Brown's workshop. He purchased at least 2 acres of land initially and started building little rental houses. We estimate he built perhaps 40 or 50 houses in East Bartow, called the Parlor area. He also had a business where he did a lot of different things, such as repairing umbrellas, silvering mirrors, digging wells, selling Bibles, and so forth. He was a sort of an everyman. If there was a need for something, L.B. Brown tried to provide that need.
He had the kind of personality, and he was comfortable around white people. And just don't forget that after the Civil War, many white people did not like the idea of blacks being free. And he was still able to be someone who was involved in the community and worked with and did business with white men as well as black men. So the last chapter is called A Living Legacy. I'm also the author of a book about Lawrence Brown and his life, From Slavery to Community Builder. Those words are on his tombstone.
Ledger books that his son Robert gave to us
He wondered if it would be cheaper to go to the butcher shop and get his meat, or if it would be cheaper to raise his own. 1 year, 2 months, and 22 days is how long he had the pig.
His brother Joe owed him $40, and he said, get it from Joe and give it to your mother.
Things about home and being a good husband, appreciating your wife.
Once you've paid me $45, I will apply that $45 as your down payment, and you can become a homeowner.
A woman's tongue is a sword, and she'll not let it rust. I don't know if he was having a hard time with his wife that day, but he wrote those two comments.
26 haircuts for 1 year for $2.50. I'm a lover of history in general, and when I first saw the house in 1989, 1990, it was abandoned. Our nonprofit that we had just started needed a place to meet, an office space.
When Clifton started restoring the house, Lakeland Ledger, the local newspaper, heard of the story and decided it would make a good story. At this time, Robert Brown, Lawrence Brown's youngest child, lived in New York. And Robert Brown saw the story and he thought, well, who are these people that are restoring this house that I lived in? So he flew down to Florida and he met Clifton. During one of his visits to the house, Lawrence and Annie's youngest child, Robert, commented to Clifton Lewis, when my father built this house. Stunned, Lewis asked Robert to repeat what he had just said. Oh yes, my dad built this house. That moment was when Clifton knew that this was much more than just an old house. It was built by a former slave.
Stumbling upon the story of L.B. Brown was just an inspiration. It sort of caused my spirit to soar.
But when you think about it, just that 5 seconds in history, just those 5 seconds, if that hadn't have happened, you and I wouldn't be talking about this house at this point. Nobody would know the history. He was an example of how we should be living today. I think that may be his legacy.
I think what it should say to young people is that look at what L.B. Brown overcame. Born in slavery, born with nothing, and having no formal education, yet becoming a highly successful entrepreneur. And so that legacy for young people is that if he could do it, my God, I can do it too.
And this house is probably as significant historically to the United States as it is to Bartow. It's an incredible home that Lawrence Bernard Brown designed and built. He was born into slavery in 1856, and when the Civil War ended and he got a little older, he educated himself on a lot of building practices and different businesses and things like that. It's a really incredible story.
My name is Clifton Lewis. I'm the director of the historic L.B. Brown House Museum and the president of the nonprofit corporation that owns the house. The house is located at 470 L.B. Brown Avenue, Bartow, Florida. The house was built in 1892 by a man named Lawrence Bernard Brown. Mr. Brown was built before the Civil War in 1856 near Gainesville. He came to Bartow sometime in the 1880s, acquired a small piece of land, he and his mother, and then proceeded to build this little mansion for his family. In addition to building this little two-story mansion, Mr. Brown built approximately 40 or 50 rental houses throughout East Bartow. Although he was born in slavery in 1856 with nothing, by the time of his death, it is estimated that he was worth well over $500,000 in 1941.
This 1892 house is a two-story home. It has 4 bedrooms, a parlor, a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a bath. The intricate millwork and beautiful gingerbread trim and outstanding craftsmanship are apparent throughout the house, inside and out. And the foundation, it's built up on 18 tree logs that are 100+ years old. And you can see them down in here when you look underneath the floor. You can also see them from outside the house, holding up the house. And it's an amazing foundation with these old logs.
He and his wife Annabelle had 7 children. Interesting to note that those otherwise healthy children produced only 1 grandchild. And that grandchild died several years ago having no children. So there are no more direct descendants of Lawrence Brown.
And to be self-taught, I mean, in design and building, you can look at cutouts in the walls. and just see the structure that's still holding up, the horsehair remnants and things like that make it a sturdy structure, original wallpapers and things, and just tons and tons and tons of antique items. Many that belong to the Brown family. Some of them were donated, but most of them are, or a lot of them are original items, such as the handle to his umbrella right here. Look at that. That's very, very cool. Also, his pocket watch. It's got his initials right there inside, and I mean this is 1800s pocket watch. Look at how cool is that, right? And a hand mirror that they used. It's amazing. Even original ledgers that he kept track of all his business dealings in, with his real estate and his Bible repairs and things like that. They also hold a festival every year in February.
The L.B. Brown Festival is held the second week in February, Saturday and Sunday. It features vendors from all over the United States. We have storytellers, live entertainment, food vendors, craft vendors, just a hope of welcoming the community of Bartow and visitors surrounding Polk County in Florida. And this was our 24th year, and we had a great time. We feature local people from the community that we highlight and pay recognition to their accomplishments to the community and to the state as well. It's just a good time for fellowship and relaxing and enjoyment throughout those 2 days. In addition to hosting this festival, we showcase and allow visitors to walk through and view this beautiful, magnificent home that was built by this former slave and how he was able to make this a centerpiece for Polk County and the city of Bartow. If you're interested in coming to the museum, you can call or email us to schedule an individual tour, group tour, organization tour, private tours. We are open. We do our tours by appointments. You can give us a call, area code 863-330-3122, or you can email us at lbbrownmuseum@yahoo.com.
Not only just the house, but indeed the man who built it.
L.B. Brown, a former slave born to a plantation minister and a Native American, built this Florida home in the 1890s. It cost him hundreds of dollars.
This is a remnant of the blueprint that L.B. Brown drew up as part of the roof plan.
Brown was born in 1856. Access to reading and writing was limited, and there weren't many options for newly freed slaves to become completely independent. But this two-story, 9-bedroom home, built by hand, shows the strength of a former slave determined to leap above adversity.
I thought we might sit on the porch for a spell and just sort of look at some of Mr. Brown's documents. It was some of your great ancestors might have rocked on the porch.
Brown has no living family, but Clifton Lewis of Bartow, Florida, did not want his story to die with the name. He took ownership of this home in the 90s and has worked to preserve its legacy for decades. Lewis says Brown wore many hats, but his most lucrative was building living spaces for the black community.
In 1894, this is a sample of a contract that L.B. Brown drew up with a fellow named Ben Knight. This was in 1894. It says Ben Knight in account with L.B. Brown. There are two clauses to this contract, clause number 1, clause number 2. In clause number 1, and I'll read just the upper portion, Brown says, it is agreed that L.B. Brown shall let Ben Knight have one lot, number 6, and one house, as to be used for renting at $5 per month. So you get an idea, a sense of what the rental for a 3-bedroom, total of 6-room house, rented for in the 1890s. This was 1894, $5 a month.
Lewis says Brown was a business-savvy man that did not see race as an obstacle, even on the tail end of the slave era. Brown was a self-taught architect.
A number of the architects have been here confirmed pretty much that it was obvious that L.B. Brown was not a school-trained architect or contractor. The way he put things together, he sort of made it work. The logical. This is the way to join these two pieces of wood.
This get-it-done mentality made Mr. Brown the richest man of color in Bartow, Florida in the late 1800s.
When the house was air-conditioned, we had to cut out a section of floor joists. This is L.B. Brown's floor joist. This is what would be used today. You see the comparison in size? This is the original, this is today's joist. That's why the house is so sound. He used tough wood.
Original fixtures, furniture, and even the sweet sound of music still lives in the L.B. Brown home.
This is an old Victrola. You crank it up, the equivalent of putting batteries in it, and then of course you put the needle on the record, you take the brakes off, kind of give it a little start.
First thoughts when you heard about his story?
I thought it was a great piece to find out that he was once a slave and came out and became free and took it upon himself not to wait and actually go out and build his own house and do his own thing. He didn't wait for anybody, and I thought that was cool to do.
Sanders says he wants to see more people of color invest in land.
That's something that I'm personally trying to help change and shift that narrative. Right now we're not. I would probably say if we were to put a percentage on it, we're probably maybe 30 or 40% of the ones that are currently buying homes.
Now, Saunders did say that the percentage of African Americans that are buying homes is going up, but he adds that it's time for all of us to change the narrative. He wants to see more people of color buying homes and securing property so that we can leave a mark for the generations to come. I'm Ashanti Ford with Atlanta Blackstar.
Has a rich history spanning over 150 years, rooted in its location near the headwaters of the Peace River in central Florida. The area's human story begins much earlier, with evidence of Palea Indians inhabiting the region around 12,000 years ago, following big game like woolly mammoths during a cooler, drier climate. As sea levels rose after the last ice age, these early hunters gave way to more permanent Native American settlements. By the time Spanish explorers arrived in the 16th century, an estimated 250,000 Native Americans lived across the Florida peninsula, including tribes that would coalesce into the Seminole people. A Spanish map from 1527 marks a native settlement called Rio de la Paz, near present-day Bartow, though little is known about these early inhabitants, who likely suffered high mortality from European diseases like smallpox. The modern history of Bartow begins in 1851, when the Reading Blunt family established a stockade community known as Fort Blunt, named after Reading Blunt, to protect against potential Seminole attacks amid tensions following the Indian Removal Act of 1830 and the Seminole Wars. This frontier outpost was situated in a region then considered remote and challenging due to heat, humidity, and uncharted swampland. The settlement's growth was slow until after the Civil War, when, in 1867, Polk County Commissioners renamed it Bartow in honor of Francis S. Bartow, the first Confederate brigade commander to die in combat during the war. Polk County itself had been established in 1861, with Bartow designated as its county seat. The late 19th century marked significant development. In 1882, Bartow was incorporated as a town, becoming a city in 1893. The arrival of the railroad spurred growth, and by 1900, Bartow was the largest city in Polk County, though it was soon surpassed by Lakeland, by 1910, and later Winter Haven, by the 1950s. In 1887, Jacob Summerlin, a cattle baron known as the King of the Crackers, donated land for the county seat and funded the Summerlin Institute, the first brick schoolhouse south of Jacksonville, now part of Bartow High School, the county's oldest high school. The phosphate industry also took root in the early 20th century, transforming Bartow into a hub for mining, alongside agriculture, citrus and cattle, and government, which remain economic pillars today. Architecturally and culturally, Bartow retained its southern charm, earning the nickname City of Oaks and Azaleas for its tree-lined streets and vibrant blooms. The old Polk County Courthouse, built in 1909 in a neoclassical style, stands as a symbol of the city and now houses the Polk County History Center. 3 historic districts, Bartow Downtown Commercial, Northeast Bartow Residential, and South Bartow Residential, are listed on the National Register of Historic Places, showcasing styles like Victorian, Mission Revival, and classical revival. The L.B. Brown House, built in 1892 by Lawrence Bernard Brown, a freed slave turned successful businessman, is a notable landmark, possibly the only Florida home still standing built by a freedman. The 20th century saw steady but slower growth compared to Florida's broader population boom. Phosphate mining peaked and then shifted south in the late 1990s, leaving vast tracts of land available. In 1999, financier Stanford Phelps acquired 18,000 acres of former phosphate land from Clear Springs Land Company, launching the largest development project in Polk County history. Approved in 2009 after delays, the Clear Springs development envisions over 11,000 homes, commercial space, schools, and a golf course, projecting Bartow's population to exceed 25,000 by 2025, a milestone likely met, as today is February 22, 2025, and 45,000 by 2030. The 2020 census recorded 19,309 residents, reflecting a 5.4% increase from 2010. Bartow has produced notable figures, including Spessard L. Holland, a former Florida governor and U.S. Senator who authored the 24th Amendment banning poll taxes, and General James A. Van Fleet, a Korean War commander. Events like the Bloomin' Arts Festival and historic sites like the L.B. Brown House Museum keep its heritage alive. Today, Bartow balances its small-town roots with growth, lying 39 miles east of Tampa and 50 miles southwest of Orlando, near attractions like Legoland and Bach Tower Gardens, yet retaining a distinct identity amid Central Florida's rapid expansion.
Pictured to my left is a former slave who became a successful businessman who owned property and built between 50 to 60 homes that he either rented or sold. His home that is pictured here on my right had 5 bedrooms, a living room, dining room, kitchen, and bath. The foundation of this house was built upon 18 tree logs that were over 100 years old. The residence was renovated in the 1990s, and pictured here is the house, more of an up-to-date photo. It's probably one of the houses in the area in the Florida area that has been preserved so well. And there's a man that has been working diligently to make sure the house is in great condition in the Bartow area.
In Evergreen Cemetery, history rests, but it does not sleep. Among the Brown family plots, 10 in total, lies a sacred extension of legacy, a final resting place gifted in honor, in gratitude, and in love. From Lawrence B. Brown to Clifton P. Lewis, the story continues. Preserving the past, empowering the future. We are the Culture Keepers. Brought to you by the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network. Visit us on GIFT TV on Roku and mobile apps, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Watch and listen to our podcast on GIFT TV, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.